right, we are back for another interview today on the floor of Chicago Midwinter with one of our faves, Dr. John Flucke, going to talk to us a little bit about what he's doing in the dental community and how he's working on behalf of most clinicians. So tell us a little bit about the roles you currently play in dentistry, some of the projects you work on.
Yeah, okay. Well, I don't sleep much.
I definitely think that's true.
I'm Chief Dental Editor and Technology Editor at Dental Products Report. I do consulting and product development for companies. And then I also function as peer review chairman for the state of Missouri where I practice. And I also do some odds and ends, things with the industry. So it's exciting. It's nice because it gives me a chance to do things that, we all get into this because we want to help patients.
For sure.
But then you get to know the other docs and you're like, gosh, I want to do something to help them.
Yep.
And it's really rewarding to be able to say, gosh, I helped with this, or, whatever it is, and know you made an impact.
So, and you still treat patients.
Yes.
Don't forget, you still have a full-time practice as well. So when you're doing some of the testing for products that maybe aren't quite on the market yet or on the market, but they're looking for enhancements or improvements, what does that process, because a lot of doctors don't know about that process, the relationship with manufacturers. What does that look like for you?
One of the best examples I have is a composite light I was working on. Now I tell people that I work on everything from the zip tie and duct tape stage all the way through. But I was working with a company on a new composite light. And they sent me a prototype and they were like, be careful with it, John, this is the only one we have. And I was like, all right. So first time we used it, my assistant cures, my assistant cures, she sets the light down, not in the charger, but on the counter, and the counter's not perfectly level, and I watch the light go, boom. And then we picked it up and it didn't work. And so I called the company and I was like, well, it's good news and bad news. The bad news is I broke it. The good news is I think I found a defect. So when it actually came out, it was still round, but one side was completely flattened on it, so it couldn't roll. They put in like what they called an anti-rotational component. And to actually, see the thing, they shipped me one cellophaned, and I got to actually open the product, and I was like, it doesn't roll. And that was just such a kind of a cool moment for me.
Making that impact, because it's one thing to design something that looks cool or maybe technically has to be a certain way, but then put it in an operatory and see how it actually functions. And what are the downfalls? Because multiple hands are going to be touching different products. How does it handle? Is it more difficult to squeeze out of a tube? Or we've definitely tested products before that looked really cool, but then when you go to engage, you can't get it through the syringe or whatever because the product is too rigid. So those are all things that are really important for clinicians to have better work experiences.
Well, and I think too, up until, I'm not sure the numbers, but up until maybe like the last 10 or 15 years, it was kind of a male-dominated industry. A lot of male dentists, and all the engineers that are making this stuff, or most of them, men. And I had a real awakening because in 2007, I merged my practice with a lady doc. And she was in practice, so she moved all her stuff in with me, and I saw that she had composite heaters. And I was like, oh, that's so cool, because I use them, and it makes the material so creamy and easy to place. And she was like, Flucke, hold up your hand. So I held up my hand, and she put her hand against mine, and her fingers went up to like there. And she's like, if it's not warm, I can't get the composite out of the gun. And I was like, I never thought of that, And so taking all these different things into consideration, and it's nice now because unfortunately my original partner injured herself and she had to retire, which was awful. But I do have another lady doc in the office, and oftentimes we get things to test, and I'm like, try this.
You need that feedback.
I do, because was it 55% of graduates now are female? So if men, like they're on the bench and they're like, oh, this feels really good. Well, it feels good like to you or to me because I have these ET fingers, But, you have to make it usable for everybody.
And what does Dental Products Report do with that information? They work with the manufacturers. Are they putting that information forward facing to the consumers? Where do you see your periodical in its use case for clinicians?
What I want people to know is that the products work, that the products have been evaluated. I always tell people, it's kind of funny because when you lecture, when you write, nobody wants a commercial.
Right.
And I get that. But also I want people to know that when I write about something or talk about it, it's something that I've used, and I'm not going to recommend to my peers something that doesn't work. Because it's all about integrity.
That's right.
I tell my kids, I've got 3 kids, and I've always told them, when you die, the only thing that goes in the box with you is your honor. And if you sell that honor, or you give it away, or you just don't care about it, you've lost everything.
Yep.
And so you've got to be able to put your head on the pillow at night, knowing clinically you did your best, And I know, and it's a bit of a burden, I know that people rely on what I do to treat people better. And one of the big realizations I had early in my career was, let's say I see 10 patients a day. So if I work 4 days a week, I've helped 40 people. But if I can if I can then tell 100 dentists that treat 40 people a week, and they get better outcomes for those patients, then I've just helped, 4,000 people. And that's what it's about.
That's so impactful. For clinicians who want to be a part of that process, they want to be a product tester, they want to provide opinion, they want to make a difference.
Yes.
What avenues do they have for, just the person working in their office every day, but they want to have an impact?
I would say don't be afraid and reach out.
Yeah.
I had a friend of mine, and a lot of times people will say, like, how do I do this? I want to do this. And my big thing is I don't really have a recipe. I had a friend of mine way back when he did a newsletter that he would hand fold and staple, and he emailed me one day and said, hey, can you write an article on video capture? Now this was way back in the days when the intraoral cameras were $15,000 in these huge boxes.
Yeah.
And I am a hacker, so I had hacked it and connected it to a laptop. And he said, can you write an article about how you did that? And so I was like, well, I guess I can. So I wrote that article, and then somebody read that newsletter, and they talked about it to somebody, and they, it's the old, and they told 2 friends, and then the next thing I know, people are calling me and then saying, hey, could you evaluate this, or could you? And it's been a tremendous ride, but I didn't have a lot of confidence in what I was doing. I guess there's probably better people, but I can at least do a serviceable job with this. And it just took off.
Yeah.
And so I would tell people, don't be afraid to try, don't be afraid to reach out. Let your sales reps know you like to test things, and give them your card, tell them to pass it along to people in the company. Because you never know. It's like the old, the thing of you drop the rock in the water, you don't ever know where the waves end.
That's right. Yeah. Well, and a lot of people want to participate in that process.
Yes.
They want to make things better. Maybe it's a pain point they're currently having, and they want to participate in that process. And on the same side, manufacturers really want a broad sweep of individuals looking at their products for the very points that you brought up about how its use cases are for different types of providers and what works well for them and what doesn't.
Right.
Doesn't do them any service to put something out that only resonates with 30% of the doctor population.
Exactly. And the one disadvantage I think we have now is that anybody that wants a platform can have a platform. And that's a great thing. Mm-hmm. But the bad thing is if you just make a TikTok and talk about this is completely junk and this is what's wrong with it, well, the companies, they don't want that.
Yeah.
They'd much rather have your input to make it better.
That's right.
Than to be like John Flucke's TikTok said that, our stuff is junk and nobody should buy it.
Yeah.
If you want to criticize, then help.
Right. I think that's a fantastic way to end.
Oh, good.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Where are you headed after Midwinter today?
After Midwinter,
on the vendor floor.
Yeah,
I should say.
I'm leaving here. I've got a lunch with a a company actually from Europe that has got a prototype that we're going to look at offsite. I can't talk about it. But then I'm looking at some other new products here on the floor. I'm interested to see the Halo Smart Mirror this afternoon. So I'm busy, but you know, the reason I do it is because I want to help the people that, you know, hang out at Dentists in the Know. I want to help the people that read the magazine. I want to help the patients. That's the whole thing.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
so much for tuning in. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.